Welcome to this edition of the SwimSwam podcast. I'm today's host, Coleman Hodges, and joining us, we have hat winner of the distance freestylers, hat trick winner, 2023 World Championships, who's world champ in the 400 free, silver in the 800 free, and bronze in the 1500 free. Today, we're sitting down with Sam Short. Sam, how's it going, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show. You know, paid a lot of attention to SwimSwam obviously throughout the years, and it's good to finally be on here.
Good to have you on. And what a way to come on. I mean, you're coming off a 3 medal performance. Just how is that sitting with you? You know, we're about a week removed from the championships. I'm sure it was a wild week for you, especially because you swim on the first day and the last day, and then somewhere in the middle, I think day 3 or 4 for the 800 final. But how are you feeling about the meet overall?
I'm obviously stoked. I smashed my PBs throughout the whole week, and it was my first. I mean, not my first major competition, but first big competition where I actually made finals and was in the position where I could potentially podium in all of them. And it was a massive week, as you said. Two 400s on the first day, two 800s in the middle of the week, two 1500s at the end of the week, and I've never done that big of a program before. So I'm happy how I handled it, and obviously stoked how I performed in the finals. And yeah, this last week I've just been relaxing. I swam this morning, but really easy. It's the first time I've done really exercise since.
Oh, nice. So yeah,
Yeah,
you've taken a little bit of time off, which
yeah.
is well earned, obviously. Going into this meet, are y'all's trials? Do you have just timed finals for the 8 and the 15?
Yeah. I think we used to have heats finals before, like 2016, but they changed it to timed finals for the 8 and 15. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna get to your trials in a bit because you had some great performances there as well. But like you said, it was a big week. You had never taken on this big of an event haul at a major meet like this. How did you prepare for that, especially coming off of your trials, having great swims, but obviously only swimming the 8 and the 15 once there, and knowing that it was gonna be the full 8 days of competition for you.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to training. I've been putting in some really big work this year, the best training block I've ever had, starting from like November last year through to Worlds. And I rarely have like a bad session. I always am able to like throw down some good sessions, no matter how tired I am. And I always surprise myself that way. And, knowing that I was going with a massive program, I think I had the most individual events, maybe excluding some 50s. I had a lot of individual events, and they were all big events. So I just relied on my training, and I do a lot of Ks. And my coach, had full faith that I would be able to perform in all three.
Yeah. So I'd love to get into some of that training and nitty gritty of that, but let's talk about the events first. So like you said, you start with the 400 free, prelims and finals of that in the same day. And then we have a great race heading into finals. I mean, it's a loaded field. You have Whittington, who's the defending world champ. You have Hafnaoui, who's the defending Olympic champ.
Yeah.
You have some other guys in there who can really throw down. Martins, who's been 341, right? And so what was your strategy heading into that swim? And how do you feel like you were able to execute it and also react, maybe midway through the race, just kind of seeing where you were at with everything?
Yeah, so after my heat swim, when I went that 3:42.4, it felt really comfortable. Like I shut off with 100 left, and just try to get my hand on the wall first. I was full of confidence. I wasn't nowhere near as nervous for the final as I was for the heat, which was weird to me. And I knew it was a stacked field. Like the medals could have come literally from anywhere in the race. And I study the sport like historically. I know pretty much what everyone's front ends will most likely be. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna take it out fast. I flipped at 149.2, I didn't expect Hafnawi to also go out in 149.5. So me and him were at halfway, basically separated from the field, and I knew that. And it was just a race in two, and yeah, came home faster than I ever have on the last 100, which is something I've been training for this last year, but I can obviously still improve a lot more. And got my hand on the wall first in that one, and the time was amazing, 3:40.6. I didn't expect to go that time this year. I would have been happy with a 3:41. That's what I've been training for. But yeah, smashed that out of the park.
No kidding. I mean, so some people might not realize this. I didn't until I was doing my research earlier. But you're some world championship silver medalist as a member of the 4x2 free relay from last year at 2022. So
Yeah,
I didn't realize that you had that kind of 200 freestyle speed. Um, but I mean, taking it out on 149 is not only gutsy, but a little risky. That always
yeah,
scares me as a fan watching. It's just like, okay, they're taking it out aggressively. How is this going to work for them? uh Mr. Short in your case, and you really backed it up. Like you said, you were able to finish really well, and get your hand on the wall by 2/100ths to a charging Hafnawi.
yeah.
So how do you balance that in training, speed versus finishing speed? I mean, did you have a goal time of taking it out for that first 200, or was that more of a feeling of, hey, I'm just going to kind of hit the gas and then trust that I have the back half?
Yeah, so I've done a bunch of good 400s in season anyway. I went 3:42 for in April, completely untapered. And in that race, I went out in 1:50.1, which was the fastest I went out in. And so I knew I wanted to be out 1:49, like mid. I thought I was going to be out around 1:49.5. Didn't expect the 1:49.2. And I've the amount of training that I did, I was fully prepared to, hurt that last 150. Like my tactic was kind of get to the last 100 and just race the boys on the last 50 and see what I can get. Yeah, so just falling back on the training because I've done push 200s going 150 as well pretty comfortably. So I knew I could, get out faster than that and then bring it home.
You push 200s going 150 comfortably. That's impressive. That's
Yeah, I've done some crazy sessions, particularly in the last year. It's really picked up. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older and physically getting stronger, but yeah, last year's been training the house down for me, really.
what can you give us a taste of that? I mean, what is there a set that you go to is your go-to of, like, all right, this is going to boost my confidence, or a set you remember of, like, all right, this, I did really well in this one. I think it's worth noting that you just told me you have Tommy Neal as a training
Yeah,
partner, among a few other speedsters, who he's a great tuner freestyler himself.
yeah, yeah. Tommy, he's got me covered on all the speed sessions. That's for sure. I've seen him throw down some great speed sessions, and he probably beats me in the 50 flies when I'm trying to do freestyle. But in regards to the 400, I mean, to get the best confidence, you just got to be able to rep out, hundreds on like 130 as comfortably as you can, holding the rate. Well, I don't really train the time necessarily. I try and hit my rate, which is typically around 43 for that 400 or 42, which is what I want to hit, and the time will come off that. I think before I knew I was on the week before Worlds when I did a broken four, and I was, you know, like it was three push hundreds and two push 50s, and I was like 53, two 54s, and then I don't really remember what the last two 50s were, but I knew I was in good shape when you can really handle a lot of hundreds just holding pace and rate.
Yeah. When you say 43, 42, is that stroke count?
Stroke rate.
Okay.
I don't really know how Damo calculates that, but yeah.
Do you know how many strokes? Do you know your stroke count per 50, or is
Yeah.
that okay?
I think it's typically in the 400, probably like 35, 36, I want to say. 1500 is like the lower 30s, or trying to be anyway.
Gotcha. Okay, that's what. Yeah, because I was like, that seems a little high for a, yeah, for a 400, but stroke rate, not stroke count for that one. That cool. So moving on to the 800 then. Well, I guess first off, first day of the meet, you're a world champion, and I mean, you did it in historic fashion. Were you able to like? Was that able to set in before you moved on to the 800, or what was that immediate reaction for you?
Oh, I was stoked. I was buzzing, that's for sure. And I had, veterans of the team like Emma McKeon and Kyle. They're like, yeah, you're world champ. That's absolutely amazing, but you've got a massive program. You've got to really try and bring it down. You can celebrate at the end of the week. So I really focused on. I kind of like tried to act as if I didn't just win a world championship. I really just went home, watched some Netflix, didn't even look or read anything about swimming, and just tried to switch off. And then I had a day to recover, and then I had a big 800 heat. So uh, thankfully for those, veterans of the team, told me to focus up. You got a big rest of the week. You got a massive program, and that's something I've learned a lot over the past year. Is settling the emotions and moving forward throughout big schedules.
Yeah, and I think it's really impressive. You're 19 years old, and you were able to do that. And like you said, you had help, you had advice from veterans, but the fact that you were able to come back and perform in longer and longer events, and get on the podium in all of them, again at like your first big worlds with a program like this, to me that's really impressive. Just as come starting the meet on such a high. So then moving forward into that eight, where do you feel like the eight falls for you? I mean, obviously you have the speed, you have the coming home speed. So where would you rank them? Like 4, 8, 15. Do you feel more comfortable in one or the other?
I feel my stroke and like my tolerance for how much pain I can really handle. I can really fit the 800. It's like my sweet spot. I feel I can hold a really high tempo and rep out some quick times. And I feel like 800 is kind of that sweet spot. 400 is always kind of intense because the way I swim it, it's kind of pedal to the metal from the get go. And then 1500, I do hurt on the last couple hundreds, but I'm getting better. But 800 is kind of the sweet spot for me.
Yeah. So, knowing yourself as an athlete and having just won a world title, which I'm guessing, gives a little confidence. Can you tell me about that 800 final and how you wanted to pace it, coming off of the prelims, and how you felt like it ended up going?
Yeah, so I went 740.9 in the heats, and I was not expecting to go 740. I thought I was going to go around 742. I felt really good. And that final, I think, must have been the fastest final across the board ever because, you had Bobby Fink in lane two, you had Dan Whiffen in there, like legit Martins, Costa, the Brazilian, Hafnaoui, obviously, Romanchuk. It was just absolutely stacked. So I knew the pace was going to be on. I knew it was going to be a textile suit world record to win it. Didn't think I knew it was going to be below 738 to win it. And my strategy for that, knowing that I was won that 400, was I was really going to use my speed because I've watched Bobby just absolutely towel up everyone on the last 50 for 2 years in a row. And I'd be really impressed if he could throw down a 25 last 50 if we go out in a 347. Like that is hard to do. So that was my strategy going into it. I didn't expect Martins and Hafnaoui to also be going out that fast. I got to the 400 and I was locked between those two boys, and I was thinking, oh, maybe I haven't gone out as fast as I thought. But it hurt a lot because we went out in that 347.1, and I kind of just hung in there for the last 200, and then I still came home, I think, in a 55.1 the last 100, but Hafnaoui came home like 54.2. So he rolled me a bit on the last 50, but I was stoked with the time. Snagged Hackey's Australian record, Grant Hackett's Australian record, which has been a big goal of mine. And I didn't think I was going to get it this year.
Yeah, to give our listeners a little context to that heat, Lucas Martins was fifth and broke a German record. Daniel Whiffen was fourth and broke a European record. Bobby Fink was third, broke an American record. You were Sam Short, you were second, broke an oceanic record.
Yeah.
The only reason Ahmed Hafnaoui didn't break an African record is because Os Maluli was so fast in
Yeah.
2009. So like you said, probably the fastest 800 free heat from top to bottom, I think, in history. Even even given that 2009 World Champs heat, I'm guessing this had a little more depth. But yeah, like you said, you broke Grant Hacken's pretty legendary 800 free record. Um, it, Give me your thoughts on the world record in this event. 732. Obviously, it was from that super suit era, but
Yeah.
uh, you know, do you see that going down soon? Is that something that I don't want to say like have your sights set on, but is that something that keeps you motivated, or is in the back of your mind?
Um, for me, it's probably I do believe it's the hardest men's record on the program to get. Probably equivalent. I think the women's 200 fly record's also extremely stiff. But 732 1, it's just like crazy, and he split it. I think he went 346 out, 345 on the last 400. So it was just ridiculous how he
Wild.
swam it. I don't think it'll be broken in the next. I would be very surprised if someone broke that in the next couple of years. But I do. We are edging closer. I mean, three boys out in 347 1. That's not far off where obviously the world record holder went out in. So, it's moving in the right direction. I think Maluli's, I think he went 345. I think that can definitely get closed in on and broken. But 732 1, that's another 3 seconds down from that. So that's very hard.
Yeah. Yeah, when we have our world record talks at SwimSwam, like that one is always just like not gonna happen. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, like you said, that might be the hardest one on the men's side. And so you have two great battles with Ahmed Hafnawi in the 4 and the 8. You get him on one, he gets you on the other. And then heading into the mile, I guess after that performance, do you feel like it was easier to calm the emotions, harder to move on from that race? How do you feel like you digested that one?
I think I was obviously over the moon with the performance and the time, and I was loved sharing the podium with Hafnawi and Bobby. I thought that was an awesome experience, and I calmed down pretty well. Had 2 days recoveries, which was excellent. Swam through those days, which I really needed those days to rest because that 800 took a lot out of me. But yeah, I feel like I executed my recovery as better than I ever have before. So really allowed me to step up, and I knew I was going to have to do a pretty solid 1500 heat to make the final, because the depth is crazy. Um, so that was my main goal, was being prepared to stand up in the morning and go well sub 15 minutes to try and make that final.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Which you got the job done.
Yeah.
You made that final. And then we saw you take it out really really strong. Like you said, you kind of have that front end speed. Um, what was your thought process or race strategy heading into that 15?
Yeah, well, I wasn't really too happy with the way I swam my heat. I kind of got caught in the cat and mouse game with the boys and didn't back myself. And I'm typically a person that likes to swim at a higher tempo, and I dropped my rate too much in that 1500 heat. So, and the way I train is to really push after the first 200, really have a really solid second, like that 500 to the 700 meter mark. Like really hit the rhythm and just keep striding. And that's all I was thinking was I'm going to really commit to this 1500. I'm going to put it out there. I want to get to the 1,000 and see how much I can really probably hurt myself and push myself to see if I can be in contention for a medal. Out of all my events, I didn't think I thought that one was going to be the hardest to medal in for me. And obviously I went out hard. I didn't think I'd be flipping it. I think I turned at 349, which is very fast in a 1500, and then 745 1 at the 800, which hurt. I was hurting a lot that last 500 of that 1500, and I saw Ahmed and Bobby go past me. I think at the 1,000, but I did notice I was third, and I was willing to really fight for that third bronze medal against Dan.
Yeah. I feel like it's interesting. This was one of the coming into the meet, this was one of the events that we were like top to bottom, this is going to be, a marquee event because we have so much depth in this heat. We saw two of the top performers not even make it to the final in Wellbrock and Paltrinieri. And it was still, such a loaded heat with so many guys who had the potential, had the best time to get on the podium. But it's interesting because it's the longest event in the pool. It's on the
Yeah.
last day. At this meet, it was after open water. And so, it's kind of an interesting dynamic where two guys went best times, but then the rest of the field was off. And to me that's kind of expected. You have some guys who are gonna kind of step up and be able to match or go a PB, and then like some guys, it's like it's a lot to get through. And so when you flipped at the 1,000, uh, could you pretty well see like, okay, I think I'm in third? Like, were you kind of on cruise control at that point, or was there a lot of adrenaline pumping to fight for that last 500?
I knew I was in a good spot for a medal, which is really where I wanted to be. And I saw I had a pretty decent, maybe a bit over body length on Dan, who I saw was probably in fourth. I couldn't really see past Ahmed, so I wasn't sure if Ramanchuk was having a blinder out on the side. So, um, yeah, I was willing to push myself. I do that like I do in training every day, and I still reckon if I had to, go as fast as possible in the last 50, I probably could have found another gear. But obviously, we'll save that for another time to come. Hopefully, when I'm edging closer and closer to those two boys out in front. But yeah, obviously a lot of adrenaline. Didn't expect to be in that position 2/3 of the way through the race. It was really exciting, and I rewatched the race a couple of days ago, and I was getting excited even though I was the one in the water. So
I'd say that was one of the best races of the meet, just from a fan's perspective, because we did have you going out and setting the pace, and then the final 5 to 300 meters with Ahmed and Bobby. Yeah, that was a barn burner. Um, so coming off of this meet, what do you feel like you have takeaways? Do you feel like you're like, okay, this is what I got to do for next season, to maybe move up on some of those podiums?
yeah, obviously a lot of learning experiences taken from the week as a whole, but mainly confidence. I think I was really proud of the way I stepped up and handled a bit of pressure that was put on me. Had a really good in-season swims and had a really good trial. So a couple of people expected me to perform, and I was really happy that I did. Stood up and got the job done. And obviously our training will be altered because now I know for sure how those guys that beat me swim the races, and I'll probably train in a way hopefully that I can counter that and at Paris or maybe earlier if we all race between now and then. Yeah, basically we'll change the way I train a little bit just to get an edge on some of those boys. But obviously I'm still 19, so I think to be fair, if I trained the way I trained this year, I might get a little bit faster without really changing anything for next year at Paris.
I think that's a pretty fair statement. Yeah. So heading into this year though, um, do how long have you been with at your current training squad?
Yeah, I've been at Rackley under Damien for since I was 16. So coming up to 3 years, maybe 3 years. Yeah, 3 years.
What do you feel like has worked for you at Rackley with this partnership of your coach?
Yeah, I feel like it's a really good environment. Obviously, everyone is in there working really hard, which is what you want at a training facility. Damien is really eager. He learns all the time, and he's always looking to get better. But he's also really good at switching off. And I feel like Damo is someone I can talk to, not about swimming. Like if something bad's happened in life, I can probably go up to him anyway and talk. And I think we're going to the footy on Friday with me, him, Tommy, and our assistant coach, Tim Dilger. We call him Digger. So it's a really good environment. He's super eager. He learns and he's very smart and good at what he does. So all credit to him. He's gotten me huge PBs. I think I dropped 11 seconds in my 800 in the last year. So that's full credit to him.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it seems like this season has been. I don't even know if a breakout season is fair because you're the reigning Commonwealth champion in the 1500. I mean, you've kind of been on this steady progression, especially since you have been at Rackley. I remember we've been reporting on you at least since you were 16 when you made
Yeah.
that move and kind of started breaking Australian age group records. But in terms of this year, um, moving through the meets, like you said, you were 342 in season. You had a massive trials. How do you and your coach feel like you were able to have such a successful in season and especially successful trials, and then move forward and keep that momentum rolling and then perform at a very very high level at world champs when you want to perform at your highest and at your best.
Yeah, I think it's just staying focused on the goals, trying to stay on track and get the job done at each kind of step in the way. I wasn't expecting to drop that 342, and I think I went to 742 in April. That was not expected at all. And I feel like that was kind of my game changer moment. I was like, oh, wow, like I reckon I could really do something this year. This is exciting. And just kind of moved through. Didn't drop the volume leading into that week of racing in April at all. And we went to a training camp in Townsville with uh, Rackley in the city and then Miami at the Gold Coast with Richard Scarce. So we had a really good training camp in Townsville, very hot there. And we put in some really good work. And then, trials was just around the corner and uh, had one goal in mind. Obviously, that was to make the team, but I wanted to put up some really good times just, to show the other boys around the world that, I'm coming through. And I really wanted to get one up on Elijah because obviously he's the reigning world champ. He was the reigning world champion, and I race him all the time because we're from the same city or train in the same city. So I love racing him, and we both went 343 at trials. I went a 740 in the 800, which I was stoked about, and snagged a little PB in the 1500. I think I went 1446. So yeah, I was obviously super stoked, and I think I've only done probably two major tapers in my career. I've only really tapered twice leading into competitions, so I'm still learning. First time was probably Com Games for last year, and obviously trials through the Worlds this year was my second time. So I've kind of learned to keep volume high leading into trials. I was still putting in some decent Ks, but just not as hard. And then from there, we kind of dropped the volume leading into Worlds, and I freshened up, felt great, and yeah, the rest is history, really.
Yeah. Um, I've got a lot of follow-up questions on that. That was some great insight. When you decided to go to Rackley, A, had you been swimming long at that point at age 16? And B, as you mentioned, St. Peter's is in the same town. You got Dean Boxall, great training group, reigning world champion in the 400 free as of 2 weeks ago. Um, what made you choose Rackley?
Yeah, so I originally trained at a club called Albany Creek, which is close to my house, and under Richard Slate, I was there for like 9 years under him, and he actually got a job at St. Peter's Western, so he went to St. Peter's, and I was actually originally probably going to plan on going there, but they don't let you swim there unless you go to the school, and they weren't willing to make the exception. So I was like, all right, I'll just go to the Rackley, and I just saw Tommy Neal tear it up at World Juniors in that year, which was 2019. So I was like, yep, I'm gonna go to Centenary and train with Tommy and try and see if I can get to his level. And yeah, went to Damo. He took me in, and just been putting in some good work since. Really.
When you got there, did you have aspirations to, make a world's team, become a world champion, break Australian records? What were your goals 3 years ago?
Yeah, I've always had really ambitious goals. That's kind of the person I am. I had a pretty good age group years as a younger athlete. I've always kind of been at the top for like the distance races in my year level, in my age category. and just kind of moved through. And each year, I was always comparing myself to the all-time rankings, and which in Australia is really, really impressive. I think the 16-year-old 400 free age group record would have won the Olympics by 2 seconds because it was Thorpe, which is absolutely ridiculous. Um, and like Perkins went sub 15 minutes at 16 or 15, something crazy. So the records are stiff, and there's been some really fast guys come throughout the years, and I was always targeting their times and trying to replicate their swims. And I think when I joined Rackley under Damien, yeah, I've always wanted to be a world champion, and I think every swimmer or athlete has the dream to be an Olympic champion, and that's what I'm training for over the next year to come.
Like you said, you'd always been kind of at the top of the distance rankings. Was distance swimming something you had always chased, or something that always looked good to you, had an allure to you? I mean, especially like you said, there's such a legacy in Australia with Ian Thorpe, Grant Hackett, Kieran Perkins, just at the top of the list. But is distance swimming, was that always the events you wanted to target?
Yeah, I think from a young age, probably around 12, I used to actually do backstroke when I was really young, but I was kind of a late grower, and all the sprint events I was just getting smashed by boys that were just way taller than me. So I kind of said to myself, I'll just keep increasing the distance until I actually get a medal. So I'll keep going higher until they tire out, and I'll just keep going. So I think from around 13, I did my first major age nationals, and I did the 400 and 800, and I loved it, swam well on them, and that's kind of where my love for distance swimming kind of started, and started watching those epic videos from Thorpe and Hackey and Perkins when they just dominate their races, and I just researched a lot of their times and splits, and kind of got a little bit obsessed almost of how good these guys have actually been for Australia, and they're household names, right? Probably there's not many household names for Australian swimming over the last 2 decades, but that like 2000 to 2004 era, they were all household names. Everyone knows who Ian Thorpe is. Everyone knows who Grant Hackett is, and most people know who Kieran Perkins is. So I think from that young age, I really just wanted to try and have my name near those boys, and yeah, kind of influenced my hard working, and to where I am now.
Yeah. So I guess just this year, as well as moving forward, how do you feel like you were able to balance training for those three events that you medaled in at this Worlds? Because I mean, I feel like it's easy to lump them all into distance swimming, but I also feel like they're pretty different, right? And they,
Yeah,
especially like the 400 compared to maybe the 8 and the 15. I mean, well, they're all essentially double each other, right? And so they are pretty different races.
yeah. I feel we have a pretty good schedule at Rackley. I mean, I do probably my 400 work on the Monday, and then I go really, really do speed set on the Tuesday afternoon typically, and then Thursday afternoon's our biggest day of the week. Thursday, we get some big kilometers in there, and that's kind of the 800 work. I don't really typically train for the 800 specifically. That kind of just happens. I feel I do 200 work, 200 pace session on Saturday morning, and yeah, the 800 kind of happens because I feel if you have a good 400, you have a good 1500, the 800 will just happen. And it has for me so far. So I'm not really going to change much on that perspective. But yeah, it is hard training for all of them, and they're all hard sessions to train for. So when the sprinters are doing their dive 35s, and I'm slogging out 500s and descend 300s, I get a bit jealous, but it's worth it in the end.
Yeah. Do you have guys who slog it out with you, on those longer sets?
Yeah, sometimes we're getting more. I had, Tommy Neal used to do it with me all the time, but now he's kind of drifted into the IM. He made the IM 200 IM at Worlds, and he's crucial in that 4x2 for Australia at a minimum. So he's not really doing the big distance sets with me anymore. But we have a younger girl, Tiana Kritzinger. She's representing Australia at World Juniors coming up. So Damien puts her in my sessions, and she's the hardest worker probably I've seen. And we have a a couple of younger boys coming through that Damo puts in to see if they can handle it. But yeah, definitely no one to actually like race. Typically, I'm all mentally pushing myself towards the end.
Do you feel like that helps you? Or, do you feel like there's a balance between that being an advantage versus a disadvantage of kind of
Oh,
doing it by yourself?
yeah, I feel obviously I can always push myself more if someone's there with me, but there are benefits to training by yourself. You can, it's all mentally, I feel you get really mentally tough when you're doing those long sets by yourself. And, if I probably wasn't training by myself, I wouldn't have gotten the results I had, the last week. I feel like it just strengthened me a little bit in that aspect.
Yeah. Do you moving into this year, this Olympic year, do you feel like the 200 free has a place in your event schedule, especially at trials?
Yeah, this year I was nominated to do it at trials, and it's always kind of an insurance policy for me. If I didn't make the 400, I was going to do the 200 free to get on that relay. Um, but I think in the next year, probably not, just because I'm still learning on how to manage that big program. And I feel like with more experience, I'll potentially be able to throw in a 4x2 in the middle of that. Because all I know is 2022 Worlds, I was entered in the 800, the 1500. I did the 4x2, and I did the 4x2, and we got a silver medal. And I was so excited, and I did not sleep a wink that night. And the next day was the 1500 heat, and I just did horribly. So um, I just something I got to manage. I reckon would have done a very good 200 if I did it in the 4x2 at Worlds. So definitely in the future, I'd love to be part of those relays.
Yeah. So just for a normal training week for you, do you count kilometers? Do you know what kind of Ks you're throwing down for a normal training week?
Yeah, I'm pretty. I mean, compared to some of the other distance guys around the world, I'm still pretty light on. I wouldn't really go much higher than. I definitely don't. I maybe only had 1 week above 80K for the week, so probably averaging 70K or less typically, which is not that much really compared to. I'm sure Paltrinieri and Florian Wellbrock probably throw down some monstrous Ks. So yeah, I've obviously got room to move in that aspect too. So I mean, if my PB start decreasing, I'll probably increase the Ks a little bit just to get fitter. But yeah, in that aspect, I don't really do that many Ks compared to distance swimmers. I do a lot more Ks than the sprinters, though.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. But I mean, that's, it sounds like you're doing serious work. And again, you're training for a wide range of events. So it's not just kind of one thing, you're not just a miler or 800 or yeah, it seems like you've got some speed in there too. So I guess just to wrap this up, moving forward, we are, I guess now kind of in this Olympic year, coming off of this world championship performance. How do you assess that in the context of moving forward into Paris 2024?
Yeah, I'm excited. I love racing. Kind of got me a bit addicted, to be honest. I want to step back up and race again. I'm excited. Got a couple of good competitions that I can race at, hopefully leading into Paris. And yeah, I just want to get more experience racing some really good other athletes. And I really just want to make my first Olympic team and get the tattoo. That's all I want to do, really. So I'm super excited. I'm trying to stay balanced. I still do university, so I'm going to try and keep that going over the next year as well. But yeah, all just excitement on my end.
Awesome. Well, Sam, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and chat. It's been really great getting to know you and your swimming a little bit. Any parting thoughts for our audience before we sign off today?
No, not really. Just thanks for listening and thanks for having me on.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.